Thank you for tuning in. Today's cover story is about a woman charged with sending threatening notes. I have a couple of other stories I want to tie into this one too. So, a lot of this to be mainly watching clips and me kind of trying to tie it in together from different perspectives. And here we go.
A Douglas County woman accused of infecting fear into the hearts of her neighbors is expected to turn herself in this week. Investigators say Teresa Lucas wrote and placed threatening notes into multiple mailboxes. The letters claim to be from a white male member of the Ku Klux Klan. Police found evidence that linked Lucas to what was going on, and she's now facing 8 months of making terroristic threats, 8 counts.
I also located the article that I can read real quick in the Atlanta Journal Constitution. It was published on September 29th, and it's titled Cops Douglasville Woman Left Racially Charged Notes in Neighbors' Mailboxes. A Douglas County woman has been charged with 8 counts of making terroristic threats after police said she left a series of racially charged notes in her neighbor's mailbox that were both threatening and misleading. The notes began to appear in the mailbox of the home on Manning Drive in a Douglasville subdivision called Brookmont in December 2020, Douglas police said on Facebook. Each of the notes claimed to be written by a white man who was a member of the KKK and threatened to kill the residents and burn down their homes. The notes described their writers as 6 foot tall man with long red beard who did not live in the neighborhood. The suspect, ultimately identified by investigators, was a 30-year-old Teresa Lucas, a black woman who also lives in the Brookmont community. Douglasville police said Lucas is expected to surrender to authorities this week, authorities said. Now, I was waiting to post this to find out what she actually looked like. If she's high yellow, brown skin, or dark skin. I mean, just want to know. And this is the area map. But I haven't seen any updates yet. Not that it matters, I was just wondering. The first two notes were found December 21st, 2020, according to the Douglasville police. Additional notes were described as having similar handwriting, tone, and verbiage. Were found on February 17th, February 22nd, March 1st, and March 3rd. The notes were left in mailbox overnight and not discovered until the residents checked their box. And this is the Douglasville police Facebook post. Information released regarding terroristic threats in Brookmont. A series of racially charged notes left in mailbox in Brookmont division led to charges against the residents of the community. Residents on Manning Drive began receiving the notes last December from a person who claimed to be a white male member of the KKK who threatened to burn down their homes and kill them, according to detectives with the Douglas Police Department. And it says by mid-March, we really didn't have anything to go on, Douglasville police detective said. And it says that they went to the door in the neighborhood to look at doorbell camera footage. The detective also walked the neighborhood multiple times and handed out flyers to Brookmont residents, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Months later, on Labor Day, a final note was found. Police said evidence was discovered that linked the notes to Lucas. Though police did not release specific details on how the connection was made, investigators were able to get a search warrant for Lucas' home where they say they found additional evidence that she was behind the threatening notes. No information was released about why Lucas was motivated to send the notes. And so, we just have to keep on checking back with this for updates. As we can see here, I also located other articles pertaining to hate groups. One here, the article to my left says that from NPR that the hate groups actually declined. This news article to the right of the screen shows that the homicide rates have decreased. And so also located another article here that shows the states that have the highest homicides, because naturally you have some states that have more population of people, so you would think naturally their numbers would be higher, but they actually have like a ratio they can use to show where it's kind of high where you wouldn't really expect it to be. But first, let's look at the article about the number of hate groups declined since last year. And so I'll just read this real quick and blow it up so everybody can see it. But it said the number of active hate groups in the U.S. has declined according to an annual count by the Southern Poverty Law Center. But unfortunately, not surprisingly to anyone who has read the news, it found no accompanying decline in hate and extremism. Instead, the Law Center, which is based in Montgomery, Alabama, said that new white nationalist and neo-Nazi organizations have become more diffuse in their memberships. The far right remain highly mobilized and extremely dangerous, with the number of threats from the far right as high as in years before the Oklahoma City bombing, said the SPLC senior research and analysis Casey Miller. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security released a bulletin warning of a heightened threat environment across the United States from domestic violence extremists. The number of active hate groups tracked in 2020 by the Law Center was 838, a decline of 11% from the previous year, but the SPLC notes that the numbers are still historically high, hovering above 800 for the duration of the Trump presidency. The number of such groups spiked to more than 1,000 after the election of Barack, the country's first black president. The SPLC defined a hate group as an organizational collection of individuals that, based on its official statement or principles, the statements of its leaders, or its activities, has beliefs or practices that attack or marginalize margin an entire class of group, typically for their immutable characteristics. An organization does not need to have engaged in criminal conduct or have followed their speech with actual unlawful action to be labeled a hate group. So with that, I just want to make a point that some states have higher crime or homicide or violent crimes than others, and it seems that naturally it would be kind of like the southern states, or not southern, but the ones with the most history, for lack of better terms. And here, where we can change the year, let's say to 2005, and click this to show us the highest was like Louisiana. But if we go like 2 years ago, because that's the closest we can go, it shows us here that's like Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, New Mexico, South Carolina, Missouri, Alaska, Maryland, Arkansas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Illinois, Georgia, Indiana, North Carolina, Florida. These are the states that have very high homicide rates. And so, the scripture tells us to, come out from amongst them. And I think most blacks like to kind of be close to one another, but it also seemed like we like to get violent with one another. Not to say that other nationalities don't. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, making an observation, the ethnography. And to the right of the screen, we just talking about an article that I located that says the U.S. homicide rate is up by 30%. Atlanta saw almost double that, a 59, rounded up 60% jump from last year or 2 years ago to the prior year. And this is just showing that they was just a homicide at a club and how the numbers are increasing. But if anybody want to locate this article and read it, they can. Now, what this story reminds me of is a case of For My Man. So I know a lot of people don't like this show, but this is an actual real. These are real cases that happen. They put their own spins on it, but it was about this girl, Shakur Clanton, and her boyfriend, who is Bovie Combs. Those two unfortunately located this sister on a bus back on June 2001, and they befriend her and they did horrible stuff to her. Let me read this real quick. Sisters, we have to be on guard around people because we never know what's going on. But as we can see, this went all the way to uh, the Supreme Court, but right here, this is the district court, and it's saying that the petitioner is Combs. But let's go down here to the introduction of the case. So this case is before the court upon petition's request for habeas release pursuant of the 2S USC. Petitioner was convicted of first degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit first degree murder after a jury trial in the district court for Wyandotte County, Kansas. Excuse me if I butchered that word, that town, that county. He was sentenced to a hard 50 life sentence plus 59 months imprisonment. He is currently serving this sentence in Virginia. Petitioners made two arguments for relief. Both arguments concern his questioning by the investigative officers. So first he was trying to say that they choked him, but this is what happened. We go to paragraph 3. It says, petition was charged along with Shakur Clanton and Andrew Jackson with the murder of Delisha Williams. There was evidence at trial that Clanton was petitioner's girlfriend. Petitioner and Clanton had become acquainted with Jackson. Petitioner believed that Delisha Williams was involved in the death of his sister. Petitioner decided to kill Delisha Williams and steal her big screen television and other property. The Clanton and Jackson agreed to help petitioner. Clanton rented a U-Haul truck with the petitioner's money. The petitioner, Clanton, and Jackson rode in the truck to Williams' home. They spent their time with William, eating and watching television. Williams decided to go to the bed, but told her visitors they could spend the night if they wish. Now, this is the part that gets really graphic. So, please bear with me. After Williams went to sleep, petitioner and Jackson attacked her. They struck her with a rubber mallet, attempted to poison her with a syringe, attempted to choke and strangle her, and stabbed her with 2 knives. Williams appeared dead. Petitioner Jackson Clayton loaded the big screen television and other property into the U-Haul truck and also loaded Williams into the back of the truck. The petitioner and Clanton dropped Jackson off at his home and continued to drive. All of these events occurred in Kansas City, Missouri. Petitioner and Clanton heard Williams scream. They decided to drive to Kansas City, Kansas, and dump Williams' body in the wooded area. They removed her body from the truck, ran over the body with the truck 4 times, and then dragged the body down the hill into the woods. There was testimony that although Williams suffered many injuries, the fatal injuries was caused by being run over by the truck. Petitioner and Clanton were both in for questioning by Kansas City, Missouri police before Williams' body was discovered. While they were being questioned, the body was discovered by Kansas City, Kansas police. Clanton testified against Petitioner. A confession from Petitioner was introduced against him. Petitioner testified at his trial. He blamed Jackson for attacking Williams at her home in Mississippi and blamed Clanton for running over Williams with the truck. So this goes into that. more in depth, but this also was made into a TV series, so I can play that. I can play some of that. Before I do, again, this is Delisha R. Williams. She says she was a loving mother, daughter, and sister. So I couldn't find any information pertaining to, this guy here, because he's claiming that she had something to do with his sister, and him and her decided to befriend her just so they can kill her and put her big screen TV on a U-Haul truck. So couldn't find any information if he actually had a sister or anything like that. I noticed the court documents didn't get into it. When they do investigate stuff, I know they say that although the criminals may confess and the confession sounds true, it may also still have some lies in it. And so they only kind of investigate what they need for the case. Otherwise, it could probably just go really down a rabbit hole. So here's the actual the movie part of it, and so it's pretty long. So I kind of moved it some, but let's start from here.
Missouri police have 2 suspects in custody for the home robbery and suspected murder of 29-year-old Delisha Williams, Bovie Combs, and Shakora Clanton. They are still on the hunt for a 3rd suspect, Andrew Jackson.
Bovie gives really little details about his responsibility in this situation. He really puts the blame on Andrew and Shakora.
Feeling betrayed, Shakora is now giving detectives her account. She confirms it was Bovie's idea for the robbery, but it was never meant to be just a robbery. It was meant to be murder.
Shakora Clanton, she began to unravel this story to us about what happened that night.
Shakora explains 2 weeks earlier, Bovie began calculating a plan of revenge.
Bovie's sister was recently killed in New York, and he found out the names of the killers.
Shakora says Bovie believed Delisha was related to his sister's killers, since they shared a last name.
Williams is a pretty common name, and I mean, that's an awful big stretch to take that just because you share the same last name that you're somehow involved.
Shakora says Bovie had been angry and hurt over his sister's sudden murder, and he wanted to avenge her death.
The only thing that he told me about Delisha was that she had something to do with it.
Shakora told us that Bovie developed this plan that they were going to rent a U-Haul and that they were going to take all of the victim's things and that they were going to kill her.
I was thinking that this guy cannot be serious. I was just like, okay, you don't have to do all that just to get bitches back, you know.
But on the morning of June 3rd, Shakora realized Bovie was more serious than she thought when he called her and told her to rent a U-Haul.
I was hoping that maybe he is just going to rob her and just leave it at that and not kill her. Even though it wasn't right, I felt like robbery is better than murder.
Shakora says she did as instructed. She rented the U-Haul, and on the night of June 3rd, she drove Bovie and their friend Andrew over to Delisha's home. She tells detectives Bovie was feigning interest in Delisha to get them in the door.
He is to pretend that he is romantically interested in Delisha to set the stage. Shakora is supposed to come with him and pretend that she is his sister and drive this U-Haul.
Introduced me to her as like his sister.
Bovie is emotionally manipulative enough to have a sense of control and can predict both women's behavior.
Shakora may not be comfortable, but what is she gonna say? Maybe this is too far, but I love him. And so she's kind of divided.
Shakora confirms Bovey's account that after the group hung out for a few hours and Delisha went to bed, Andrew tried to subdue her with the syringe. But Shakora says once Delisha started trying to fight back, Bovey jumped in to help.
It was very terrifying, especially the things that they were doing to her. And I just feel that I could have been the one to save her, and I didn't.
Shakora tells detectives at that point she felt there was no stopping Bovey. He was determined to kill Delisha.
As Bovey sees that Delisha is not going down, he grabs a knife and he starts to stab her.
Shakora says she was frozen watching the horrific scene.
I was feeling like I was in something that I couldn't get myself out of. I was hoping she was still alive after all the things that she was enduring, because she shows so much strength and she fought so hard for her life.
Shakora claims Bovey instructed her to head back to the truck.
After they thought that they had killed her, they started loading her belongings up into the U-Haul.
Shakora tells detectives after that, the men loaded Delisha's body into the truck. According to Shakora, the trio then drove to Andrew's home.
Shakora's thought process at this time is most likely, I have a very passive role. I'm just supposed to drive the truck.
Shakora says Andrew then got out of the truck and headed to the back.
They drive Andrew Jackson home. He gets out, lifts up the gate on the back of the U-Haul, casually takes out a TV like there's not a body in the back of this truck.
Shakora says after Andrew went inside and they were preparing to drive off, something shocking happened.
I heard a scream, and I was just like, what was that?
Delisha Williams wasn't dead. She's still alive in the back of the truck.
June 4th, 2001. Kansas City detectives are interrogating Shakora Clanton about the disappearance and apparent homicide of 29-year-old Delisha Williams.
Shakora admitted that her boyfriend Bovey and his friend Andrew attacked Delisha as a part of a revenge plot.
Bovey thought that Delisha's family had something to do with the death of his sister.
Shakora claims she helped Bovey plan the attack, but she didn't realize it would actually result in murder.
When it all started going down, Shakora said she was in total shock.
Shakora says after they dropped Andrew off, that's when something truly unbelievable happened.
I heard a scream, and I was just like, what was that? And Bovey looked at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're hearing stuff. I was just like, no, I heard somebody scream.
Shakora claims it was clear Delisha was still alive in the back of the truck.
I said, well, we're taking her to the hospital. This is getting way out of control. We're taking her out to the hospital. He was like, no, we're not. We're not. We need to find somewhere where we can dump her body.
Shakora tells detectives she pleaded with Bovey to do the right thing.
I said, no, this is way out of my control. This is getting too far. We need to start doing the right thing, because what we're doing is not right. She's alive. He was like, nope, you need to find somewhere to dump the body, because by the time we get there, she should be dead.
At that point, Shakora made a choice. She did as instructed and drove across state lines to a secluded area.
This desire to be loved led Shakora to willfully choose Bovey over her own moral compass.
Shakora says the night only got worse from there.
As soon as I found this place, he opened the back of the truck, and she just jumped out. Delisha and Bovey was fighting. At that time, I was just standing there watching.
Shakora claims Bovee subdued Delisha by hitting her with a rock, but she was still alive.
So finally, he got her to where she was down on the ground, and we got in the truck and just went over her.
Shakora admits they then left Delisha's body there and drove back to her home. And within an hour, the police had arrived.
I thought to myself, how can you do this to another human being? I mean, your human side and your emotional side has to take over, and just think about what this woman went through.
After wrapping up their interview with Shakora, Missouri police get word from their colleagues across state lines in Kansas.
Kansas City, Kansas police show up to this wooded area and they find Delisha's body.
The medical examiner is able to confirm the body found was that of Delisha Williams.
The family was devastated. Her godmother probably knew deep down inside that she was gone, but to have all of that hope taken away, that really hurt her.
Forensics is also able to confirm the blood found in the U-Haul was a match to the victim. On June 6th, Shakora Clanton and Bovee Combs are both charged with first-degree murder, as well as first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and first-degree robbery. A week later, the couple's accomplice is also apprehended.
After a few days, we finally caught up to Andrew Jackson.
But just when detectives think they know what happened, their interview with Andrew will reveal alarming information that suggests Shakora may have been more complicit in Delisha's murder than she let on.
She thought, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to keep that relationship, even if it goes into the path of dysfunction or deceit or a plan of murder.
Shakora was just someone that he used as a pawn from the beginning, that he just kind of built up trust.
Everyone who knows her couldn't believe it. They could not believe that she would go this far just to keep her man happy.
Kansas City, Missouri. Investigators have just brought their third suspect, Andrew Jackson, into custody for the brutal murder of 29-year-old Delisha Williams.
The other two suspects, Shakora Clanton and Bovee Combs, are already in custody.
In Bovee's statement, he blamed much of the violence on Andrew.
Bovee claimed that while he just wanted to rob Delisha, Andrew was actually the one who led the attack, while Shakora handed him the weapons.
But Shakora's statement puts Bovee in a more active role, and her as a reluctant bystander.
Shakora's statement basically flips everything Bovee said on its head. She claims she's just standing by, watching in total shock while Andrew and Bovee attack Delisha, and Bovee is taking the lead using different weapons.
On June 12, 2001, Andrew Jackson gives the full statement. He admits that on the night of the murder, he was part of the plan.
He confirmed Bovee wanted Delisha dead. He wanted revenge for his sister.
Andrew said initially he was just trying to help subdue Delisha.
But amidst the struggle, Andrew realized they were making a mistake.
Bovee said something about, "This is for my sister," and Delisha was completely confused.
Delisha really didn't seem to have any idea of what was going on and why this was happening to her.
While they're attacking her, Andrew starts to feel like they're taking out Bovee's rage on an innocent woman.
We were never able to confirm that the victim was somehow related to the people who killed his sister.
This was a mistaken identity gone horribly wrong.
Andrew says at that point, he stopped participating in the violence and pleaded with Bovey to take Delisha to the hospital.
He wanted to just take responsibility for what they had already done and stop before they'd gone too far and she died.
Bovey would not listen because at this point he was seeing red.
Andrew says he backed off. But to his surprise, it was then Shakora who suggested Bovey keep stabbing Delisha.
He does what she suggested and continues to stab her.
Andrew says once the victim was unconscious, Bovey and Shakora were eager to carry on with the robbery.
He said Shakora was actually the one pointing out which items they should take.
Andrew admits he helped Bovey load Delisha's body into the truck along with the stolen items.
After that, he demanded to go home. He doesn't want anything else to do with this.
After speaking with Andrew, police charge him with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. With Andrew's statement in tow, detectives feel confident that Bovey was the mastermind. But Shakora was much more than just an innocent bystander.
Shakora is complicit in this crime. She did not have to rent that U-Haul. She could have stopped it at any time, but she didn't.
Shakora denies Andrew's accusations that she actively assisted Bovey in the murder. In April of 2002, though Shakora continues to refute the claims of her accomplices, she does decide to take responsibility for her role in what happened to Delisha.
I wanted to do the right thing. I felt like it was my responsibility.
Shakora has pled guilty to the charges against her, which really tells us that she is at the point of remorse and accountability.
In hopes of a reduced sentence, Shakora testifies against her ex-boyfriend.
I was very proud of Shakora for testifying against Bobby Combs. He's a murderer. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
In the end, the jury finds Bovey Combs guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping. Bovey is served with a stiff sentence.
He received a life sentence, which he was given a hard 50. So he has to serve 50 years before he's even eligible for parole.
Andrew Jackson is also found guilty at trial and is handed a 15-year sentence.
The coroner in Wyandotte County determined that she was killed in Kansas City, Kansas as a result of being ran over by a U-Haul truck. So Andrew Jackson wasn't in Kansas City, Kansas when Delisha Williams was killed.
Shakora Clanton is ultimately convicted on charges of first-degree murder.
She received a life sentence, but she's eligible for parole after 20 years.
Life behind bars has given Shakora time to reflect on her actions.
Delisha was an innocent person, and this was clearly a case of mistaken identity. And for what she and her family went through, it's just terrible. She really didn't deserve to die.
Shakora hopes that one day she can earn the forgiveness of Delisha's family.
I'm sorry, and I never meant for this to happen. I didn't think that it was going to happen, and I just hope that they find it in their hearts to forgive me.
She's very remorseful about her part, her role.
Shakora's goal in sharing her story is that it can serve as a cautionary tale to young women out there.
I was really in like a place in my life where I was looking for love in the wrong places, and he showed me some attention, and I just thrived on that.
I honestly believe that Bovey Combs manipulated her in such a way that he could get her to do whatever he wanted her to do.
I've covered a lot of stories, covered a lot of crime, but nothing like this where a young woman was basically willing to throw it all away and actually participate in a murder to please her boyfriend. It's just really sad.
And of myself, I wouldn't be so naive and gullible. my life would have been better. I wouldn't have ended up here.
Or will you let him lead you?
All right, so with the last the next case that reminds me of the woman who's posing as the KKK is this Ohio man guilty of killing 9 people in multiple house fires. So this case is recent, and what happened with this case is that the man so with the lady with the KKK, she wanted her neighbors to leave. With this case, I believe the man was the opposite. He couldn't get any neighbors to like befriend him, and so it was kind of like, this is alleged that he was retaliating on pretty much neighbors that didn't want to be his friend. But they have different sections of his case that we can look at. I guess we can look at the defense opening statement.
Sea Cuisine tops premium wild caught.
I'm Vinny Palate, and welcome to Closing Arguments. Great to have you with us tonight. Big night here. It's a Monday, brand new week, and guess what? A brand new trial here on your front row seat to justice. This one really involves, you look at the facts, that this is a mass killing. That's the allegations here. Mass killing, mass murder, whatever you want to call it. 9 people taken from this earth, including 5 children. And what you're talking about here is a horrific death for all these victims. Burned alive. Houses set on fire. Families trapped, families perishing. This is atrocious. And prosecutors believe they have the person responsible. Obviously, the defense has a whole different perspective on all of this. But for more on this story, it's a death penalty case. Should be a death penalty case. Crime and Justice reporter Joy Lim Nakrin has more.
A string of arsons still haunts this Akron, Ohio neighborhood.
It changed everything. Everything. And you don't know who to trust.
62-year-old Stanley Ford is accused of setting 3 fires on his own block, killing 9 of his neighbors.
9 people, 9 family members. I mean, the road's already so bad.
The first fire happened in 2016, killing 65-year-old Lindell Lewis and his partner, 66-year-old Gloria Jean Hart. This lot now sits vacant where their home once stood. Then came a car fire which injured no one, but in 2017, Ford allegedly set a fire which killed a family of 7. The victims, 35-year-old Dennis Huggins, 38-year-old Angela Boggs, and their 5 children, the youngest just 1 year old.
It was senseless. It wasn't no reason for it. You know, you took away children and parents.
Arson is so sudden and so tragic that I definitely feel for the families.
Prosecutors say Ford had disputes with his neighbors, which allegedly drove him to kill.
This man not went and killed somebody else. He burnt up somebody else's house already, and then went and did it to a family of 7.
When I moved here, I felt it was a nice community, and it's a shock that this has happened.
Ford is accused of more murders than any one individual in Summit County history, and he is facing the death penalty for his alleged crimes.
It's just not right. People like that should be put away, lock the key, forever.
I feel very badly for the families, and I hope that they get the justice that they deserve.
Ford maintains he is innocent and is being held without bond at the Summit County Jail pending the outcome of his trial. He tried to move the trial to another county, saying extensive media coverage had turned the community against him, making it impossible to find a jury of impartial people.
It's sad. And I just, again, I would say, I hope justice does get served.
So today, day one in this case, it all began. We have a jury, and this is going to be difficult. I mean, some of this evidence that's going to come in talking about how these victims died and what they went through, and those 5 children.
Okay, thank you for staying tuned in. And the next story segment is Woman Calls Police on Black News Crew. The reason why I pulled this story in is because it actually spins on 2 heads of the spectrum. On one side of the fence, people can say that if a police asks you for your ID, in all actuality, one should comply. But on another fence, some people believe that it could be very intrusive if a police officer asks you for your ID. Me, I'm on the side of, I could see both sides where, let's say if someone was being harassed by the police, you know, that would just add to it. But on another side, if there was possible danger in that area, you can maybe help be a witness to something later on, so they actually have your information. You can actually help the community in that way. But nevertheless, here's a clip, and just have something to show you that this reminds me of, and then a couple of other clips. Here we go.
We just got the cops called on us because we are in a predominantly white neighborhood. So this car blocked us in.
Well, our own Ayanna Crystal recorded that video after an encounter with a white woman while they were out on a story.
Our crew, as you heard there in the footage, believes that woman called 911 because of the color of their skin. As a television station, we had our concerns. Hope you understand. We requested the 911 tapes to get more information about this. We also went back to the neighborhood to hear her side of the story, and we asked Ayanna to tell us her emotional experience.
CBS 46 reporter Ayanna Crystal and her photographer Gino Collins, both black, were in this quiet East Cobb neighborhood earlier this week, doing what they do every day, telling stories and informing viewers.
We noticed a white SUV pull up beside us, and we thought it was kind of strange, but didn't think anything of it. She stayed there for maybe 10 minutes or so.
But things changed hours later when the team says this white SUV pulled up in front of their unmarked news car and sat there for several minutes. They didn't realize the driver, a white woman, called 911 to report them.
There's somebody in that car. And I'd like to know who takes pictures of this home. And then there's somebody in that vehicle in the passenger seat. They see me sitting here. Because I've got them blocked.
Are you or anyone else in danger right now?
Not looking towards us. I couldn't stop shaking. In this situation, I'm not a reporter. I'm a black person to this cop. And so, you know, you're terrified because you don't know what's going to happen.
The news team complied with the police officer's request for multiple forms of ID, even though they didn't need to. No crime had been committed.
He mentioned like a threat. She felt threatened. And I was like, but why? We're here doing our job. Where's the threat?
I'm Jonathan from CBS 46. Can I talk to you for a second?
We sent the CBS 46 Bulldog to question the woman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was pouring down rain, but nobody got out of the vehicle. Nobody said anything, so I didn't know who they were.
She says race did not play a role in her aggressive pursuit of the crew.
If it was me sitting in the car, would you have called the police?
I would have if anybody was sitting out there with an unmarked vehicle. Somebody's parked in front of your house in an unmarked vehicle. It does make you nervous to stay in time. Do you want to start? You know, we heard her explanation. We heard the 911 call. Why does she have to know who's in that vehicle, right? Why is it her right to know who's in the vehicle? And I still have questions for the, cop police there.
Once they arrived on scene to figure
Why do I
out...
have to show ID? This is America. They're citizens. It's a real problem. And sometimes There's the bias that we can comprehend, we're cognizant of, and a lot of times there's the bias that we don't know we're under the influence of. I don't know which it is with the woman, you know, in the t-shirt that said, "I'm too tired for something."
Don't talk to me.
That might have been a good idea yesterday.
Well, and to think CBS 46 was there, Ayana's assignment was to go out there to warn the neighborhood about red-tailed hawk attacks. And so that's why they were in the neighborhood. That was their assignment yesterday, to go talk to people that have suffered attacks and also to be able to warn other neighbors about this. To think that they were somehow viewed as a threat by anybody is kind of ridiculous.
A threat where a woman who is so afraid, apparently, she has to call 911 and she has to block them in and stay very close to these people that are
she's afraid of as a threat.
So that's our take. Perhaps yours is different, but we promised that we would get back to you when we learned more. It's part of a much larger discussion and a lot more to unpack.
It's a sensitive subject.
The only thing about this story was it wasn't very clear. The only thing about this story, it wasn't very clear why the news lady, why she was there and where was she? So she was at work and her job told her to meet her at a location that was actually in front of a person home that didn't want her there. And it seems like the narrative of this one was kind of stretched a little bit, just my perspective on it. Here's a clip of a cop tasing a 65-year-old woman in a traffic stop that went wrong.
But things start to escalate when the 65-year-old granny... It begins with a routine traffic stop, but things start to escalate when the 65-year-old granny at the wheel won't sign the $80 ticket for having a broken taillight.
You don't want to sign it?
No, because I don't think that I deserve to pay $80 for something that is fixable and I can fix it.
All right.
That's all you want.
Wait, step out of the car.
Why?
Because you're under arrest. Step out. Step out of the vehicle. Step out.
The granny rolls up the window, then cracks it.
You be fair with me and I'll be fair with you.
Step out.
No.
You're under arrest.
No, I'm not.
The tension rises.
You are full of because you're not placing me under no damn arrest.
She relents, but it's too late.
Shut up and give me that and I'll sign it.
Step out.
No.
We're beyond that.
The woman takes off. So the cop jumps into his cruiser and chases her.
Get out of the car!
When he catches up to her, he approaches with his gun drawn. Then things turn really ugly.
Put your hands behind your back.
The officer tries in vain to get handcuffs on the granny. Cops say she tried to kick the officer, who then tasers her.
Put your hands behind your back!
Eventually, the officer succeeds in cuffing her.
You hurt?
Yeah, I'm hurt.
What hurts?
Everything. You did not have to taser me.
You wouldn't comply, you wouldn't get out, and then you tried to kick me. So, yes, I did.
Yeah, I tried to kick you because I'm a country girl.
I spoke to security expert and former police officer Steve Cardian about the drama which happened outside Oklahoma City. We're talking about a woman in her 60s here. This was all over a broken taillight. Did it have to come to this?
Well, that's where the lawful but awful comes in. It's lawful what he did, but it looks awful on camera and to the public. She should have signed a summons and just be on her way.
You're under arrest.
No, I'm not.
The woman was charged with assaulting a police officer and resisting arrest.
Here's another one with the police sergeant. Here's another one where the police sergeant kicked the woman handcuffed while she was on the ground.
Let's head to Atlanta now, where a disturbing video appears to show a police sergeant kicking a handcuffed woman in her head. NewsNation's Janelle Fort live in Atlanta. Janelle, another officer standing nearby and really appears to do nothing.
Yeah, Nicole, the video is truly cringeworthy. It was brought to light because it was posted to a popular Instagram page, and like many others, that's where I saw it first. In the video, you see the woman, who we now know as Ashley Cooley, on the ground, hands behind her back, handcuffed. And it appears that she lifts the top of her body to spit at the sergeant, and almost immediately we see that sergeant kick her in the head. Now, this video, it doesn't have any sound, so it's unclear what's being said, the events leading up to this moment, but watching it, you can't help but question, was this necessary? The video, it's gained so much traction that the top brass at Atlanta Police has now acknowledged the video. He's put out a statement. In that statement, the department said the actions of those in the video appear to fall outside of the standards and training of the department. And the department says that the sergeant who kicked Cooley in the head is now on unpaid leave. That other officer who stands by and appears to do nothing is on desk duty. And they say that this incident, it started as a call for help. A 911 caller told a dispatcher that there was a woman that was walking around with a gun threatening people. Police got there, they detained her, and then there was a question about her mental state. And in a news conference earlier today, Cooley's family and attorney both said that she suffers from mental health issues, but they say that is no excuse for the way she was treated in that video.
Nothing justifies what happened. We are aware of spitting that occurred, but nothing within the police policies requires them to respond with physical force the way they did.
Now, Atlanta Police says further action is pending, and there is an expedited investigation into this incident.
Here's another one that's pretty much pertaining to, the mistreatment of women. A lot of times you see the mistreatment of men, and then I think women are forced to make a statement against the mistreatment of men, but we do not get forced to make statements about the mistreatment of women, and ultimately more so silenced and kind of looked at in a way of ridicule, kind of like a RICO type of situation where the black man doesn't offer any kind of protection. It's more like laughing at the fact that we're not being protected and saying like, well, we can offer you protection, but it's with conditions. And I don't know if they understand that's like against the law. It's RICO. It's racketeering. And so they're going to start beefing up on these charges so that, women can be protected, the average day woman. And it's not just a luxury tax. But here we go.
Me back into the shower room to dress me out, and she shut the door. She had me undressed and bend over to cough, and when I bent over to cough, I felt something go up my rectum.
Okay.
And she said this is what it feels like to really be sexually assaulted. And then she tells me that who's gonna believe me because I already just cried wolf and got what French did me.
Okay.
That's why I wasn't gonna record it, because I didn't want anyone to think I was stupid.
love you. I love you very much. I love you, Chicho. I love you very much. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're the best mom anyone could ever ask for. And I know what I've done to you is wrong in so many ways. Because you're better than that, and so am I. I need you, so please don't give up. Why are you going to give up? Having these phone calls, Mom, is the only thing that's keeping me going right now. And I always know whenever I'm going to call, you're going to be right there to answer.
What happened?
She jumped out. We're almost to the hospital. She jumped out.
She got the shackles. Is this Jordan? Yeah.
She got the shackles out.
She jumped out of the
bathroom.
Sure,
notify your guys' supervisor.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Hey, Jordan Sims, or Jordan, whatever, she jumped out of the vehicle here on 20th Avenue and busted her head open pretty good. TJ said she got out of the shackles and jumped out of the vehicle.
How fast?
I'm not really sure here. How fast were you going?
35, she went under the wheels.
Going 35, she went under the wheels. Was the back door not locked, or?
We locked, we got in. I locked it and she had her shackles on.
And which door did she come out of?
Right here. This one right here.
Okay. Did we want to look? Shackles or anything? Okay. These are the leg shackles down here in her shoes, which they're closed. Yeah. I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
I'm sorry.
I know. I'm just tired of yelling everything. Just wait, just wait.
I wanted to add this story on because this woman, when she decided to leave the Olympics because she needed time for herself, I felt like a lot of black men were very discouraging, and I guess being with a man is considered to be macho and not very in tune to what other people are feeling or going through. So I kind of just wanted to play the beginning of this investigation and then the part where she expresses what happened to her, and just kind of help it to be something we kind of can support her with by listening to her and honoring her strength.
His report on the handling of sexual abuse allegations against the former teen doctor for USA Gymnastics. It was then that we learned that the FBI severely let down dozens of teenage girls, several of whom bravely came forward in 2015 to report their abuse. Children suffered needlessly because of multiple agents in multiple offices at the FBI neglected to share Nassar's allegations with their law enforcement counterparts at the state and local levels. Disturbingly, the abuse occurred at the hands of someone who was entrusted with their medical treatment and well-being. Brave survivors now poised young women are with us today, and we welcome you and your testimony. The FBI, in its July 13th response to the Inspector General's report, attributes this episode to a few agents at the FBI field offices who neglected to carry out their duties properly. I suspect there's much more to that story. One issue, not talked about much, is that the FBI has a division in Washington, D.C., known as the Violent Crimes Against Children Unit. This component of headquarters was notified by two of its field offices about the Nasser allegations way back in 2015 and 2016, respectively. The Children's Unit employs subject matter experts, so it is well positioned in the FBI to guide those field offices on their duties in child exploitation cases. Because it's housed at headquarters, this Children's Unit also was uniquely positioned to play a coordinating role by supervising case transfers to the appropriate FBI field offices. And this unit was well positioned to offer qualitative supervision of field officers' work. For example, by ensuring that follow-up occurs in sensitive cases. Tragically, it's obvious these things did not happen. The FBI, including this Children's Unit, also place publicity and its image before victims' protection in this case. The Children's Unit helped develop a white paper, or more accurately, a whitewash, after the Nasser case attracted national attention. Ensuring that truthful information was provided about the FBI's role in this investigation was clearly not the main priority. This is a serious problem at the heart of the FBI, not a case of a few errant agents. At today's hearing, I hope to hear more about exactly who at FBI headquarters, other than its Children's Unit, knew about the Nasser allegations, how and when they learned of these allegations, and what they did in response. If there's one thing the Inspector General's report illustrates, it's this, that we need to make sure the Bureau is more effective and held more accountable. This episode is unfortunate too, because, as I've said repeatedly, there are many extremely fine men and women in the FBI, and many who serve their country well as employees of that superb agency. I look forward to hearing from young women who were the first to bravely come forward.
You're first, if you'd like to give your opening statement.
Today? Oh, it's on, sorry.
If you'll pull the microphone close to you, it works much better.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my story with this committee and for bringing light to the crisis of abuse in amateur sports. Your commitment to ensuring the safety of gymnasts and all amateur athletes is appreciated, important, and necessary to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Please bear with me. To be perfectly honest, I can imagine no place that I would be less comfortable right now than sitting here in front of you, sharing these comments. My name is Simone Biles, and I am a gymnast who has trained at the levels of the sport. As an elite gymnast, I have had the honor to represent the United States of America in multiple international competitions, including World Championships and the Olympic Games. Over the course of my gymnastics career, I have won 25 World Championship medals and 7 Olympic medals for Team USA. That record means so much to me, and I am proud of my representation of this nation through gymnastics. I am also a survivor of sexual abuse, and I believe without a doubt that the circumstances that led to my abuse and allowed it to continue are directly the result of the fact that the organizations created by Congress to oversee and protect me as an athlete USA Gymnastics, and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee failed to do their jobs. Nelson Mandela once said, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. It is the power of that statement that compels and empowers me to be here in front of you today. I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse. To be clear,
Take your time.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee knew that I was abused by their official team doctor long before I was ever made aware of their knowledge. In May of 2015, Rhonda Fayen, the former head of USA Gymnastics women's program, was told by my friend and teammate, Maggie Nichols, that she suspected I, too, was a victim. I didn't understand the magnitude of what all was happening until the Indianapolis Star published its article in the fall of 2016, entitled, Former USA Gymnastics Doctor Accused of Abuse. Yet while I was a member of the 2016 U.S. Olympic team, neither USAG, USOPC, nor the FBI ever contacted me or my parents. While others had been informed and investigations were ongoing, I had been left to wonder why I was not told until after the Rio Games. This is the largest case of sexual abuse in the history of American sport. And although there have been a fully independent investigation of the FBI's handling of the case, neither USAG nor USOPC have ever been made the subject of the same level of scrutiny. These are the entities entrusted with the protection of our sport and our athletes, and yet it feels like questions of responsibility and organizational failures remain unanswered. As you pursue the answers to those questions, I ask that your work be guided by the same question that Rachel Denhollander and many others have asked. How much is a little girl worth? I sit before you today to raise my voice so that no little girl must endure what I, the athletes at this table, and the countless others who needlessly suffered under Nassar's guise of medical treatment, which we continue to endure today. We suffered and continue to suffer because no one at FBI, USAG, or the USOPC did what was necessary to protect us. We have been failed, and we deserve answers. Nassar is where he belongs, but those who enabled him deserve to be held accountable. If they are not, I am convinced that this will continue to happen to others across Olympic sports. In reviewing the OIG's report, it truly feels like the FBI turned a blind eye to us and went out of its way to help protect USAG and USOPC. A message needs to be sent. If you allow a predator to harm children, the consequences will be swift and severe. Enough is enough. I will close with one final thought. The scars of this horrific abuse continue to live with all of us. As the lone competitor in the recent Tokyo Games who is a survivor of this horror, I can assure you that the impacts of this man's abuse are not ever over or forgotten. The announcement in the spring of 2020 that the Tokyo Games were to be postponed for a year meant that I would be going to the gym, to training, to therapy, living daily among the reminders of this story for another 365 days. As I have stated in the past, one thing that helped me push each and every day was the goal of not allowing this crisis to be ignored. I worked incredibly hard to make sure that my presence could maintain a connection between the failures and the competition at Tokyo 2020. That has proven to be exceptionally difficult burden for me to carry, particularly when required to travel to Tokyo without the support of any of my family. I am a strong individual and I will persevere, but I never should have been left alone to suffer the abuse of Larry Nassar. And the only reason I did was because of the failures that lie at the heart of the abuse that you are now asked to investigate. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with this committee today. I want to sincerely thank each of you for joining the survivors of this abuse to do what we all can to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Biles.
This is the best time for a break if you like.
Market drops 5 points. I'm glad my money's tied up in hay. Oh, morning, Wilbur.
Never mind that. I'm tired of you beating me to the morning paper. I like to read it with my eggs.
I like to read it with my hay.
But when you get finished with the paper, nobody else can look at it.
Say, Wilbur, get a load of this story. Here at the bottom of the page in the corner.
Little old lady leaves cat $50,000. Oh, that's silly.
What do you mean, silly?
What's a cat going to do with $50,000?
Well, he won't have to chase mice in his old age.
That's true. He could buy himself 40 or 50 cows, have a lifetime supply of milk.
That cat's got security, which is more than I've got.
If it'll make you feel any better, if anything happens to me, Carol will take care of it.
Yeah, suppose she marries a horse hater.
Oh, she won't. Carol only marries nice people.
Wilbur.
What?
Am I mentioned in your will?
Now, wait a minute, Ed. No horse gets better care than you do. You get the finest hay, the best carrots, and something else. Last night I went out and I spent $5 on you for these special mineral tablets. Supposed to be good for your coat.
Well, I'm not worried about my health. It's your health I'm worried about.
Come on.
No, thanks. I'm a horse, not a guinea pig.
Carol finds out I've wasted $5 on these, she'll kill me.
And then marry that horse hater.
She will not marry a horse hater.
And thank you for still staying tuned in. And the final feature story for this evening will be a woman attacked by a fake flower delivery man. And I just had a clip to show you of this, and then a clip of what this remind me of, and then just a final clip on the way out. It's a little it's a little R-rated, the last clip, just so people know. But here we go.
Does your kid have scoliosis?
Woman attacked by a fake flower New at 6, an Atlanta woman attacked by a fake flower delivery man.
The suspect caught on camera walking up to her home with a large bouquet. The victim says he tased her with her 2 kids inside the home.
And tonight she says her attacker still on the loose. CBS 46's Tori Cooper spoke exclusively to the victim about the terrifying encounter. Good evening, Tori.
Good evening, Alan. Sabrina says that this camera you see above her garage caught someone pulling up here for more than 16 days straight. She says during the course of that time, the individual in that car was able to study her whereabouts and therefore develop a very sophisticated plot to get inside her house. It's a knock at the door. Sabrina says she will never forget.
I'm terrified right now just because, you know, I'm a single mom. I don't live with a man. So now it's like I'm calling my older boy because, like, hey, you want to live with me? You know, like I'm scared for my life. Like,
Sabrina did not want to show her face out of fear that this man in a white shirt, seen getting out of a white van with a bouquet of roses, may recognize her in this interview.
Like, and I'm not a stupid female. I don't just let random people in my house that seemed like a real home delivery guy. He at least paid like $300 for those flowers.
Sabrina says when she answered her door, the man asked if he could come in to set the flowers down.
He set them down. When he turned around, he pointed something at me. It looked just like a gun, and I was getting tased probably for like 10 seconds.
She managed to remove the taser from her stomach, run upstairs to get her gun and her 2 sons, ages 5 and 10. She called 911, but the man already took off.
I never stepped foot back into that house when I left.
Sabrina then took another look at her surveillance cameras and noticed different cars pulling up to her house at different hours to survey the area. Her camera also caught this man in a mask, dressed as an exterminator at the door just days earlier.
He was there looking. He was sizing up the cameras.
Sabrina hired a private investigator, Sergeant Jay Graham, who says he checked every flower shop in the area, but couldn't tie the bouquet in question back to one location.
So this is what I thought was very interesting on a sour note is this sister was able to afford a private detective, private investigator to look into the situation, and she did it to no travail because he couldn't find out anything. All he did was look at her actual camera footage to tell her that that guy was not there cleaning for no loss or whatever. So I felt like that was very interesting for us sisters who and other folks who wish they can hire a private investigator but kind of have a stomach and a notion that, hey, you might be paying somebody for nothing. Well, guess what? This shows you right here that, you know, it's more than meets the eyes in this situation anyway, because with a single woman being targeted and she's attractive, usually this is someone from the past that just wants to get close to her, wants to remain close, so they will try to ignite fear in her. So the rule of thumb is don't open the door for no one, no how, no never. That's the rule of thumb. But here we go.
But he did discover that this man was not looking for wasps, but rather looking at the cameras outside.
I hope somebody got some information and find them.
Now, Sabrina says the man was not wearing any gloves, and therefore she believes his fingerprints are likely still on that vase of flowers. Now, I reached out to the Atlanta Police Department to find out if they ever took any fingerprints, and they did not get back to us as of news time. Meanwhile, Sabrina says she's just hopeful that they can track this man down before he hurts anyone else. Live in Buckhead, I'm Tori Cooper, CBS 46 News.
So that story remind me of the John Wayne Gacy killer clown. These were the tactics that he used to get inside of people's homes.
I think that he is proud of what he has done. I think he's proud of the title that he's got of the largest mass murder in the history of the United States. It's sick, but I think that he's proud of it.
I think he took out his sexual fantasies on these boys. He accomplished his goal, and then he murdered them.
I castrate him for what he did to me and the others.
These people are talking about John Wayne Gacy. On the surface, the divorced stepfather of two seemed a solid citizen. He owned a successful construction business that he ran from his home in Cook County, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. He was active enough in politics to have had his picture taken with then First Lady Rosalind Carter. But the man who entertained neighborhood children would soon become known as the Killer Clown, a sexual psychopath who lured dozens of young male victims to his house before assaulting and then murdering them. Even with Gacy's handwritten map, it took the police weeks to recover all the bodies he had buried in the crawl space under his house. Gacy had been killing and burying his victims for at least 4 years. 11 of his victims have still not been identified. In 1981, the courthouse here in Cook County, Illinois, was the site of John Wayne Gacy's trial for mass murder. He was convicted and sentenced to death for torturing and then killing 33 young men and boys. 10 years later, he's still alive. But what infuriates the victims' relatives even more than that is Gacy's newfound fame.
Personally, I believe he's the worst animal who has existed during this century.
Terry Sullivan was the Cook County DA who prosecuted John Wayne Gacy. He says that since Gacy has been on death row, he's taken up drawing, then painting, and his ability to sell his artwork for thousands of dollars is like salt in the wounds of his victims' relatives.
Yeah, certainly his abilities to get his name out and his paintings out and all the rest of the things outside of the jail walls is something that just it adds another burden to the back of the victims' families that are out there right now.
2 years ago, Gacy's paintings were exhibited in Boston. The art show consisted of 20 of Gacy's paintings, and it was a complete sellout. As a result of his notoriety, Gacy has received a great deal of mail from people around the country. He corresponds with them on stationery bearing his own personalized letterhead. These letters and others have been compiled in a new book about Gacy and his pen pals. It has reportedly sold a substantial number of copies.
Why should John Wayne Gacy have anything? He should have nothing. All his rights should be taken from him for what he did. I do not feel that a person who has committed so many crimes and hurt so many people should have anything available to him. Nothing whatsoever.
Dolores Nieder's son, John, worked in construction after he got out of the Marines. His last job offer was obviously from Gacy. The police found his remains with the others under Gacy's house.
When you lose a child, it's like taking a little piece of your heart out. Now, Gacy has stolen something from me that I just can't forgive him. I can't forgive that man. Do you blame me? Do you think I have, how can you forgive somebody who ends a part of your life? I can't do it. I don't even think God would expect me to do that, to tell you the truth.
Do you want Gacy executed?
Yes, I do. I want Gacy to die.
The beginning of the end for Gacy began in December 1978 when an investigation into the disappearance of 15-year-old Rob Peace led police to Gacy's house.
We found numerous pieces of identification that belonged to other young male individuals, and it didn't take too long to see that there was a pattern here, that these identifications belonged to people who were missing throughout the Chicago metro area.
In 1978, Joe Kozenzak was the chief of detectives in the Des Plaines, Illinois Police Department. That was where Rob Peace lived before he disappeared. Joe says Gacy confessed to him in lurid detail.
John used to like to read the Bible, certain excerpts from the Bible, to his victims while they were dying, and was essentially not finished with the victims once they died because he was a necrophiliac.
Tell me, how did he lure his victims?
He primarily used the guise of being a police officer. John was into the police thing. He had a Chicago police star. He had a car. He'd buy a brand new car every year that would always be black.
On the way to his house, he was boasting that he was a police officer. And he showed me his gun. And his car, it looked like a police car, like an unmarked police car. It had a spotlight and everything.
This man, we'll call Jim, doesn't want his identity revealed. He met Gacy in a bar and was invited to his house to do some drugs. For some reason, he survived his ordeal and can now tell us what happened.
Did he give you drugs?
Yeah. And he told me to try this other stuff, it's better. So I tried it, and a minute or so later, I passed out. I ended up in the bedroom. And he was messing me.
He was sexually assaulting you?
Yes. And I tried to push him off, and I couldn't.
You're probably one of the few that ever got away alive. How did you do it?
I don't know. Well, I told him I wanted to go back to my car. And he said, well, okay, I got to go to church anyway, so I'll give you a ride back. And he gave me a ride back, and he gave me a handful of speeders. And I got back in my car and went home.
Like nothing happened?
Yeah.
What was your reaction when Gacy was arrested?
I got lucky. I got lucky he didn't kill me.
But at least 33 others were not as lucky.
It's not fair. It's not fair. When are all his appeals over? When will his execution be carried out? That's what I want to know. Is it going to be in my lifetime or isn't it? And nobody could give me an answer.
All right, so this is my last clip. It's about 5 minutes, and on the way out, if I can say one thing to the ladies who are considering dating a gentleman suitor, If a man is extremely persistent with wanting to talk to you, ladies, this is a red flag. I mean, please do toot your own horn and know that you are beautiful and always intelligent and lovely. But a man, a real human being that has humanity, would respect your space and your privacy and your essence and your core, and not persistently try to talk to you as if they have to do all this stuff to talk to you, so that when it doesn't work out, they want to now do all this stuff to show you that you can't leave them. So if someone is like persistent in your life, and you've already told them you don't want to talk to them, or you kind of need space, and they're still pursuing you, it's a red flag. I mean, in all honesty, something's not right there. He's either being misguided or he's just not right. And nevertheless, ladies, it's not your job to take out the garbage. Everybody has to come to a realization that can't no other person fix me. I have to fix me. So it doesn't matter how old you are, because it's never too late to start the process of journeying to love and cherish yourself. And I guess that's the golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated. So ladies, please understand that it means something other than what we think it is when it comes down to the nature of what guys have been conditioned to do. So I just want us to keep a hindsight on it. And again, this clip is a little X-rated. I love Pam Grier. I think I watched all her movies. The one thing that I hated was that it was a little X-rated. I wish they could have kept their clothes on. Now, when you're looking at the body, it's the beauty of art in its own self. They have beautiful statues and pictures of the body, so it's nothing to be ashamed of. I just felt like it wasn't very ladylike, like she should have on clothes. But the one thing that I really loved about it is that they made her look like a decent person. It wasn't like, now you taking off your clothes and now you're trash. So she was on the up and up, and she's made her living. And here we go.
The Big Bird Cage. A strange yet brutal world of men who are only half men.
Don't play coy with me, Tootsie. You don't have anything I'd be interested in anyway.
And women who are more than all woman.
I told you I was gonna cut it off and try to pull that shit on me.
Meet the girls of the Big Bird Cage, enslaved to every cruel whim and desire of a ruthless madman.
Now, where's Jungle?
Don't you think I'd tell you before I let this fat pansy slap me around?
Abused by savage degenerates. Ravaged by vicious dogs. Punished by the terrible machine that maims tender bodies and cripples innocent young minds.
Damn it! She has no right not to tell us. She's the only one around here that ever gets any, and she won't even tell us about it.
Denied the one thing which would make their life bearable, their overheated passions burst forth in a wild rampage of vengeance and destruction. Birdcage, starring Pam Grier, Anitra Ford, Candace Roman, Ted Abrachi, Carol Speed, Karen McKevick, and Sid Haig.
Let me die. I'm alive. What are you doing, Karen? Where do you want to be buried, nigger? And it's Miss Nigger to you.